Hey everyone, after uploading my last video about the Eveelutions, check out that video in the description, I didn't immediately go back to drawing the rest of them right away due to some personal reasons. Sorry about that, but I tried to get back to this project as fast as possible, and now it is time. In the last video I drew what I thought Vaporeon, Leafeon, Jolteon, and Glaceon would look like as girls. I know in that video I was just talking about making them human, so no gender specified, but after uploading it I realized that I pretty much imagined them all as girls, so... If you're hoping to see some dudes, sorry to disappoint. But with all of that out of the way, let's get into the actual video. I started this drawing with two Eveelutions in mind, because in my head they would be friends. And who would that be? Maybe you already guessed it, but I am talking about Umbreon and Espeon. These two have been competing with Vaporeon for the spot of my favorite evolution. Nowadays I think I've settled on Vaporeon, but these two are definitely close behind. Almost immediately I knew where I wanted to go with Espeon, because she's mysterious and in my head I always envisioned her as Indian. Maybe it is because of the red gem on her forehead that looks a bit like a bindi. I don't know if that's the vibe they were going for when designing her, or if they just thought it looked cool. Either way, I knew that I wanted her to be an Indian girl. For the clothing and her overall vibe, I thought the whimsy goth style would suit her. Additionally, I thought that she would be doing tarot card readings, and that's why she's holding cards. In her other hand, she is holding a pendulum to help her see into the future and connect to spirits. Looking back, I probably should have made the colors pop a bit more, but that's okay. One of the whimsy goth outfits I saw online has Angs on her belt, and I just love that idea. I'm 100% sure that she would be the type of girl where you hear her accessories jingling before you even see her. Let me just say that I love when girls wear intricate jewelry that makes them make noise while walking. Umbreon was super fun to draw. I made her into more of an 80s strat goth. I hope that I did this subculture justice because I'm not well versed in it. All I knew was that it looked awesome and what overall direction I was going in. So I went bit by bit, starting with the dress. And this one is actually inspired by one I own. The long sleeves on mine are see-through, but the similar ones I saw online were not, so that's how I ended up drawing them. Maybe I should have gone harder on her accessories, but I'm not really sure. Can any of the goths in the comments let me know how I did? Let me say that I am in love with the corset and hair though. It made her seem kinda witchy, don't you think? The blonde highlights are supposed to mirror the rings on Umbreon's coat, so that's why I gave her the moon pendant on her choker. I always interpreted the rings as moons because they were set to glow in the dark when nighttime comes, but there are hoops now, so I'm not sure. Either way, I knew that a cross necklace was going to be a must, because that is such a staple in all types of goth fashion. The fishnets were kind of a last-minute decision, as you can see, by how late I ended them. You see, I was looking at the Pokemon again and I thought that it wasn't resembling Umbreon enough yet. So I made the top part of the stocking into a moon too. It didn't really work out as planned, but at least it looks more like a Gajinka now. Overall, I think that Umbreon looks a bit better than Espeon, but they are still a cool duo. In my mind, they would definitely be friends. After getting done with the two, I set my eye on Sylveon, and right away I knew that she would need a puffy dress. Initially, I had planned for her to belong to the Decora subculture, but while browsing for references I didn't see too many frilly skirts or dresses. Maybe I was looking in the wrong places, but nothing I saw at the time gave me that oh my god, I need to draw this type of feeling. More so I was getting intimidated by the pictures I was finding. Of course I knew that Decora style had a lot of details, but while doing the research I realized that I had bitten off more than I could chew, so I was in dire need of a change in my plans. My backup plan was to make her a Lolita, but that seemed a little too uninspired, right? Maybe that's just me. At least by now I had settled on the pose and decided to take it step by step from here. I gotta keep it real with you, I tried one before this, but it didn't work out at all. But that was just a genuine skill issue on my part. I ended up deleting that part of the speed paint in order to not bother you with that. Okay, time to get into the design. I drew the shape I wanted for the dress and then went into the hair because I already knew what hairstyle I was going for. Ever since I was young I always liked when characters in media had this twin-tailed drill hairstyle. I think seeing Tito for the first time influenced me more than I may have realized at the time. As you can see in my sketch, she had a sort of hard cutout on the front, but I didn't want people to think that I was trying to sexualize the design, so I scrapped it. I just genuinely thought it looked cool, and that she needed more detail. For the shoes I referenced those typical magical girl boots, I'm sure you've seen them a million times, and put Sylveon's ribbons and bows in every place I thought they would fit. Only thing I would have changed in hindsight is the size of the ribbons. I think it would have looked more dynamic and cool if they were bigger and were flowing around her, but this is okay too, I guess. Evie, however, posed a real challenge because I wanted her to look more toned down from the rest of the cast. After all, she is supposed to be the first evolution, and that is why I made her a kid, and also an explorer. I tried to capture that childlike wonder we all felt as kids, when you're still figuring out who you want to be by trying out a bunch of things. She has a Pokeball pin to make it a little more interesting, and because I felt like those beiges and browns were a bit too boring. I also just like how it looks, and it communicates that we're still talking about Pokemon here. You can't really tell in the final version, but there's a band-aid on her knee, not just to make it more childlike, but also to give visual proof that finding yourself sometimes involves trial and error. I'm sure we've all gotten injured as a kid while trying something new and trying to test out the limits of our bodies. Hopefully you didn't get hurt too bad as a kid, but most of the time this results in a minor scratch or a bruise. A friend of mine wanted her to be a boring office person, but by that time I had already drawn the design, so sorry about that, dude. Lastly, I added Eevee's ears on the top of her head, but that's just an accessory to make it a little more clear that this is a Pokemon Gijinka. Still, I had to keep it human, so they're just part of her head and not her actual ears poking out. And that gives us this final version. Drawing this didn't take as long as the other evolutions because it's a very simplified body, but it still showed me once again that I need to practice drawing childlike figures. Every time I draw a chibi, I am also painfully reminded of that. Flareon started off as a real challenge. I brainstormed a bit, of course, but the only things I could come up with were really boring, like making her a firefighter. I knew that wouldn't do, so I had to come up with something else. Then I asked my friend and he suggested to maybe make her a punk, and that kinda steered me in the right direction. In the end though, I just said screw it and started drawing, hoping that I will figure this out as I go. And going with the flow actually helped me out here. At first I drew the body in a chill pose and gave her a big hair to mirror the shape of flames. I knew that was going to be a must, but beyond that it was just me going by vibes. My friend also suggested a jacket and I did draw one, however I wanted the neck piece to be furry like her chest, but that ended up looking strange. Nothing I tried helped, so I had no choice but to scrap that part of the design. The jacket crop top combi also looks alright in my opinion. At this stage I at least figured out that I wanted her to be a tomboy. That meant a piercing and some sneakers would probably be fitting. And for the bottom part, I went with baggy pants for a chill vibe. She probably wouldn't want to feel restricted by her clothing. To this day I feel like she needed some abs because I like that on female designs, but my lack of skill was once again here to humble me. Man, I really need to do more studies on how to shade a stomach to make it look like the person has abs, so I can draw cool buff women. When I try, it usually doesn't end well. To still keep the fire theme, I gave her those flame glasses that were super popular in 2020, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I like that idea, but like with the band-aid on Eevee, it's not noticeable enough as it needs to be, because I made the line art layer too light in color. At least, this was a learning experience. And that was actually our last evolution. So here is Flareon with the background I drew at first. If you were wondering where the speed paints for the rest of the evolutions like Vaporeon and Leafeon were, then check out the link in the description. I had to make this a two-part series, so the first one has the rest. Also, don't forget to subscribe to not miss other challenges coming in the future. If you have a suggestion, leave a comment and I might do a video on it. Now it was time to assemble everything and I have them all together in one big picture. And that is how it looks in the end. I placed Eevee in front since she is the starting point of every evolution, and everyone else I placed behind her to show the many possibilities of what she could become. Drawing all of them was fun, but also kind of a struggle sometimes. Either way, it taught me a lot about my art skills, or lack thereof. It really showed my flaws and where I need to improve, which was demotivating at first, but that's always the first step to getting better. After all, you need to know what you're not good at to get better at it. So if you would like to watch me get better at art, stick around and maybe follow my socials if you would like. All of them are in the description as well. I hope you liked my video, even though it took me so long to get out, but what else is new on this channel? I hope to see you in the next one and take care.